the whole thing about this election, right, is now there's nothing to talk about except this election because the entire fate of the universe hangs in the balance and we don't know anything. We won't know anything until the vote comes in. So I'm just going to sit here for 45 minutes and stare into the camera. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. But that's the thing. Everybody's talking about what they think will happen. What do I think will happen? My gut, which is all it is. It's my gut is not too happy right this moment. I'm sort of suspecting we're going to lose the House, hopefully hold on to the Senate. But as I said before, that's just the map playing itself out because a lot of these suburban districts are going to go for Democrat congressmen, but the red states will go for their Senate people. So it just means that the whole Trump, in terms of Trump and his personality and the resistance, it's all been kind of a wash. I mean, obviously, if the Democrats take the House, they'll parade around as if they've done something amazing, but that'll just be kind of typical. It is typical for the guy in power, for the party in power to lose seats. But, the thing is, we just don't know. We don't know what could really happen. The thing that could happen that would change everything is at the last minute, there are all the Republicans are polling under Donald Trump, which means probably that there are a lot of people who support Donald Trump but are looking at their local Republicans saying, I don't know. Hopefully those people are going to figure out that whatever they vote for, whether the Democrat is a veteran, whether he's a nice person, whether he sounds like a moderate, they are all going to vote with Nancy Pelosi. There's no point. That's all they are. They're just another tick for Nancy Pelosi. Not one of them is going to break away. Not one of them is going to go across the aisle and compromise. You might as well vote for the Republican, even if you don't like him that much. If they do that, then things could get very surprising. The thing about this is, because it's a two-party system, and because one of our parties has lost its mind, there's always a way in which everybody's saying this election is about Donald Trump, but it's also about Barack Obama. And if you ever watch Don Lemon, just for the jokes, just if you want to see what happens when a guy who has had a brain surgery goes on TV, if you ever watch Don Lemon, one of the things you'll notice he does is he'll never allow people to talk about Barack Obama. And he'll never allow people to talk about anybody else doing anything wrong and say, well, he's not the president. He's not the president. So basically, it's only the president. You can't compare him to anything. But of course, nobody operates in a vacuum. People operate in this country as opposed to the other party. The story that we've been hearing these last 2 years, it's been an amazing story. These have been amazing political 2 years. In fact, so amazing that I don't think anybody can actually rise up yet into helicopter mode and get a picture of the full extent of what's happening. But this story is not just a tale of Donald Trump. It is a tale of Barack Obama and Donald Trump. It is a tale of what we went through for 8 years, what the media didn't report, how it reported Obama, and how they're reporting Donald Trump. If the media treated everybody the way they treated Donald Trump, I'd say fine. We'd all say fine. That's the way the media is. They're attack dogs. They should attack. But they don't attack. They don't attack the left. They only attack the right. And when they get caught out and called out on Donald Trump, they start to get crazy. But these are two separate visions of what America is and how reality works. It's beyond just what America should be. It's how reality works. I want to go back to Obama's famous Berlin speech that he made when he was still Senator Barack Obama before he was elected president. And I'm not going to play any of it because I just want to remember one line in it. Remember, he got up and he said, fellow citizens of the world, fellow citizens of the world. And he said, people of the world, look at Berlin, where a wall came down, a continent came together, and history proved that there is no challenge too great for a world that stands as one. That could kind of summarize the Obama vision that we had for 8 years, that the press told us was great, that everybody said was the right thing to do, that everybody said was, and it sounds good. A world that stands as one. Who wouldn't want a world that stands as one against evil? One little problem. Never happened. It did not happen. The Berlin Wall and the Soviet Union did not come down because the world stood as one. It came down because Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and Pope John Paul II and a small cadre of conservatives who were in the minority, as conservatives are always in the minority, stood against the world. The world will always want things to go on the way they're going on because it's safe. They just think this is the way it is. Ronald Reagan famously said, we are going to win the Cold War. And George Shultz, who was supposed to be the great foreign policy expert, ultimately Secretary of State, so what do you mean? What do you mean? And Ronald Reagan said, I mean, we win, they lose. That was not the world coming together. Ever since the 60s, there was a time when America stood together against Soviet communism. But after Kennedy died and after the 60s happened and the left radicalized, they were not standing against the Soviet Union. There were many people who were saying, this is the future, I've seen the future and it works. Ronald Reagan really was standing alone. When he said evil empire, if you can imagine what they would do today, that's what they did then. When Ronald Reagan called the Soviet Union an evil empire, the press went nuts. Oh my God, he's a warmonger, he's going to blow us all up, he's going to kill us all. The wall did not, I'm just talking about facts here, okay? The wall did not come down because the people stood as one. It came down because people that the press and the left despised stood together and brought the wall down. When Ronald Reagan walked out of the Iceland, treaty, and he said, I'm not going to deal with you, I'm not going to get rid of Star Wars, the press went nuts. Oh, the warmongering. Oh, he's going to kill us all. Even today, they credit Gorbachev, who did everything he could to keep the Soviet Union alive. They credit him with bringing down the Soviet Union. It just didn't happen. I was there. It did not happen that way. Ronald Reagan, just as Rudolph Giuliani was under attack every day when he cleaned up New York and made it one of the great cities in the world, Ronald Reagan was under attack every day when he brought down the wall. So Obama's vision was false. It was a lie. It was a kind of rosy, vague idea of the way things work. And because of that, we saw in our foreign policy, things went bad. We saw the caliphate of ISIS go nuts, right? We saw how they took over so much space in the world. By mid-2014, I'm reading this, ISIS controlled a taxable population of some 7 or 8 million people. That was the caliphate. That's the size of New York, 7 or 8 million people. And that meant when young men were called to join the ISIS caliphate, they saw victory. They saw something there. Young men want to be with the winners. They want to fight on the side that's going to come up on top that represents their values. They had oil fields and refineries, vast grain stores, lucrative smuggling routes, vast stockpiles of arms and ammunition. That disappeared under Donald Trump because he had a different attitude. Now, let's go back to Trump in Poland. Remember, he made that wonderful, I thought it was a terrific speech in Poland in 2017. Here's his quote, okay? Not the world stood together as one and the wall magically melted because like the Care Bears. Remember the Care Bears? They would just care and the caring would radiate out of their center. That brought down the Berlin Wall. Well, no. So here's Trump in Poland. The fundamental question of our time is whether the West has the will to survive. Do we have the confidence in our values to defend them at any cost? Do we have enough respect for our citizens to protect our borders? Do we have the desire and the courage to preserve our civilization in the face of those who would subvert and destroy it? Okay? That's not so nice sounding. That doesn't sound like the Care Bears. That sounds mean. It sounds tough. The thing is, we're a pluralist society. That means we disagree, hopefully, in a civilized way. That means we don't chase our politicians out of restaurants because we don't like what they stand for. It means we don't show up on college campuses and shout down speakers because we don't agree with them. It means we're pluralists. We have different ideas, and we get together and talk about those ideas, and we compromise, and we try to be civil to each other, even though we may not even like each other. That's what a pluralist society is. But pluralist societies cannot stand if they are tolerant of intolerance. What does intolerance mean? It means not listening to other people. It means only one idea is fair, only one idea. The only idea we have to protect is our pluralism, right? We don't have to protect, and our freedom. We don't have to protect ideas that will destroy freedom and pluralism. That is what's called the tolerance. Lawyers call that the tolerance trap. It is the tolerance of intolerance, right? So Trump is right. We have to stand. People do not want other people to be free. They want to control them. They want to tell them what to do. We have to stand for freedom, and we have to fight it back. And this is what causes so much panic on the left. This is what causes all these ideas that everything is going to fall apart. Is that tough talk, that sound that Trump makes, and it did with Reagan, and it did with George W. Bush, when he stood up against the Islamists. When you say, no, not every idea is acceptable, the thought that stops thought is not acceptable, right? That's when people get crazy. I want you to listen for just a minute to Bill Maher telling people to get out and vote, and what his vision of it is of this election, which is between Republicans and Democrats as ever.
Getting this moment wrong and not participating will be just like your student loan debt. It will haunt you for the rest of your life. Getting this moment wrong, you can say goodbye to reproductive rights, to legalize pot, possibly to gay marriage, and definitely to what's left of the environment. If Trump wins, he will cast it as a complete endorsement of his most undemocratic behavior. If you're 18 and that happens, you stand a very real chance of not living in a Western-style democracy for part or all of your life. Yes, it can happen here.
I love that they call Trump a scaremonger. I love when they say, oh my gosh, he's talking about this, the caravan, the invasion coming up out of the Honduras and through Mexico, and he's scaring people. That is what Bill Maher just said there is the left. And I always respect Bill Maher because he stands up for free speech, but he has been he sold this with Romney. He sold it with George W. Bush. He even said himself when Trump was elected, when Trump was running, he said, oh, we told you the other guys are Hitler, but this time it's really Hitler. It's not really Hitler. I mean, it's the idea that we have to defend our values. Under Obama, this milky, hazy idea that things were great as the world stood at one, the Care Bears foreign policy, things went terribly bad. And one of the things that happened, and one of the things that I think Trump has seen, was the Iran-Russia axis grew up. Russia, remember, took back the Ukraine. Iran went on developing nuclear weapons while Obama dealt with them and tried to arrange this nuclear deal, which didn't do anything. And China rose up as an economic power with the stated intention of replacing us as the economic center of the world, which would be fine if we were Macy's and they were Gimbel's. There's an old reference for you. But I mean, if we were one store and they were another store and they said, we're going to beat out America, but that's not true. They are an oppressive single state, single party state that spies on its people, that has an elaborate method of spying on everybody. And we are still a free country. And so it makes a difference which one of us wins. And Trump has changed that. Trump has changed. There was a story coming out. It came out November 2nd. Nobody covered it. Let's see if we can figure out why nobody really covered it. An absolute disaster took place for the CIA from between 2009 to 2013, okay? The U.S. intelligence community experienced crippling intelligence failures related to the secret internet-based communication system, a key means for remote messaging between CIA officers and their sources on the ground worldwide. This previously unreported global problem originated in Iran. So this was going on. Obama knew it was going on. Obama was president, and he was still dealing with Iran. And in China, it happened in China too. More than 24, they're saying somewhere around 30 of our spies, of our intelligence officers, were murdered, executed by China and Iran, especially in China, as a result of this failure. Every corner of the national security bureaucracy, from multiple intelligence agencies, congressional intelligence committees, and independence contractors to internal government watchdogs, was compromised, forcing a slow-moving, complex government machine to grapple with the deadly dangers of emerging technologies. Reading that from the Times, I believe it is. And of course, by the way, who was the Homeland Security Advisor during the whole time until he was later the CIA chief? It was John Brennan. This was happening under John Brennan. Have you noticed John Brennan's kind of shut up ever since they took his security clearance away? That actually worked. It was funny. I'm not in favor of shutting people up, but there it is. All he is saying is it didn't work. Obama's attitude didn't work. Of course it didn't work. You're not a citizen of the world. If you think you're a citizen of the world, walk into Mexico without going across the border crossing and see what happens. If you're a citizen of the world and you're a woman, go into Saudi Arabia and take off your clothes. All the leftist women are saying, we're going to be naked and that's going to force people to vote. I don't know what that means, but that's what they're saying. Go ahead and try that in Saudi Arabia. See how that works. If you're a citizen of the world, you're not. You're a citizen of the United States of America. You're a citizen of the United States. All your ideas, all your remarks, everything you have, everything you believe in, everything that makes you free is generated by, protected by, created by this country. That's just true. It's just true. And you can't make it go away without losing all those things you have and all those things you love. And that is the ugly, ugly truth that Donald Trump seems to know in his gut, seems to know viscerally, and Obama didn't. And that's why as we come into this election, it's just important to remember what it is Trump represents. And it's important to stop thinking so much about Trump's huge character and his huge character flaws. I know those both exist. He's a big character and he has big character flaws. But we're talking about, there are only two visions on the ballot. There are only two visions on the ballot. One of them is this kind of vague, weird vision that we can open our borders and everything will be fine. Everything will be fine, that we can tolerate everything and everything will be fine. And the other is an idea that the American system of pluralism, of freedom, of individual liberty has to be defended. So let's close out this talk about this election that we don't know about. We'll know more tomorrow, obviously, as the evening wears on. But let's take a look at what Trump has to say about the election and what Obama has to say about it. Since we started out by saying this is about a tale of two presidents, about Trump and Obama, let's listen to them both. Let's listen to Obama first, all right?
In 2010, they said that Bill and we were setting up death panels to kill your grandma. Remember that? In 2014, they said, Ebola's going to kill all of us. Shut the borders. In 2016, it was Hillary's emails. They were all wound up about that. And the mainstream press picked up on it. This is terrible. This is a breach of security. You know they don't care about that, because if they did, they'd be worrying about the current president talking on his cell phone while the Chinese are listening in. They didn't care about it. They said it to get folks angry and ginned up. Now in 2018, they're telling you the existential threat to America is a bunch of poor refugees 1,000 miles away.
Well, except now they're 800 miles away, so they're getting closer every day. And, it is a lot of people to just let come crashing through the border, as Obama did. So he thought the death panels were just a joke. But in fact, that was true in Obamacare. They did have panels that would decide. Of course they do. Once the government is controlling healthcare, at some point they have to say, we can't afford this. And they close you down. You're old. You're done. Sorry. Bang. See you later. They did have death panels. Ebola was and continues to be a threat. That was a dangerous thing. And of course, the immigrants coming in, look, I don't think this is like, oh my gosh, all these immigrants are going to come over and take over the country. Nobody's saying that. But what the hell? The rule of law does matter. And of course, Hillary's emails, if you and I had done it, we'd be in jail. So here's what Trump thinks is going on.
I think we're going to do well in the House. I think we're going to do really well in the Senate. And there is something going on out there. And I think you know what I mean. There's something going on. There's something that's very interesting that's happening. The level of fervor, the level of fever is very strong on the Republican side. So I can't speak to the blue, but I can speak to the red. There's a lot of energy out there. They want to see border security. They don't want people pouring into our country. They don't want open borders. They don't want to pay for other people's health care. There's a lot of enthusiasm on the Republican side. I haven't seen it really since our big election victory in 2016.
So he thinks the same thing is going to happen. It would be a big surprise. Listen, if it's a surprise, it's going to be a surprise. We just don't know, but we're going to find out. And it's all up to you. So get out there and vote.